Hey everybody, welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We have a third-party transforming figure review for you. This time around we're going to be taking a look at the Fans Toys FT-49 Phantasm. This is their take on a masterpiece scaled G1 Mirage, and man, I gotta tell you, he looks the part. Oh, it's just a gorgeous figure. But let's go ahead and get into it real quick, and we will start with that box. You've got Phantasm at the top. You have FT-49 Fans Toys. You've got that artwork right there. Phantasm on the side. On the back, you have a bio that if you care to pause and read it, you can. And then down here, you've got a little bit of additional information as to what comes in the box, and he's standing there with his buddy Jive, which we will be seeing shortly as well. You've got some warnings down there. You don't really have a sad baby, so, you know, there's that. No lack of sad baby makes me sad. And you got Phantasm FT-49, Phantasm FT-49, and Phantasm FT-49. So that is it for the packaging. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what came inside that box. Behold, laid out here before you is everything that came inside that box, and we'll start over here on the left. This is your sheet of instructions. Very well done, nicely illustrated, and also you have a QR code on the back if you care to scan that so you can see a little bit more as far as the transformation instructions. And then over here on the right you have a bio card, so this is very nice. It's a nice quality plastic. It's got some good sheen on there. And on the back you have that bio again. I will try to hold it still if you want to pause it and read it. And then you have his tech specs right down there. Very cool. Alright, so that leaves you with what we have remaining here. We're going to start with his primary weapon here, his rifle. So let's take a look at this, and I do believe that this is painted. I don't think this is the native color. Take a peek under there. Maybe. You can't really tell, but it feels like it's painted, so just be careful with this. Good amount of detail, not a whole lot going on there, but this is very G1 Mirage-esque as far as that weapon goes. So it looks pretty good. And then you do have this, the handle down here will fold down and it opens this up, and we'll take a look at that in vehicle mode as well. I have a theory as to where this goes in vehicle mode. Time will tell if I'm right. So yeah, looks pretty good. And then you have an extra head and two extra faces, and all these are interchangeable, so let's go ahead and take a look at face number one. This is Screamy Angry Face, I guess. Well, he doesn't have eyebrows, it's hard to tell if he's angry, but it's definitely Screamy Face. His mouth is open. And then you have Happy Face. So there you go. Looks pretty good. And then you have another head. So the difference between these two heads is the head that is currently on him that came with him in the box is a wider base head. So down here at the bottom on either side of his jawline, this is a little bit narrower on this one than the one up there. So that one looks a little more Egyptian to me. This one just looks just a little bit slimmer. Oh no, he fell. Not a good time to lose one's head. But anyway, yeah, it looks pretty good. And like I said, you can swap the faces out on either one of these. So let's go ahead and demonstrate on this right now. You just pull either from the bottom or from the top or from both at the same time. And you pull that face off and you're left with that. And then you just take another one of those faces right there. So let's go, you know what, let's go with a smiley face. I want to see Happy Mirage. And plug it in. Give it a push. And look at that. It's a happy smiling Mirage. Or Phantasm, excuse me. So there you go. That's how that works. All right. He does come with one other accessory in the box that's detached, and it is this, the missile here. The launcher portion is a permanent part of him. The missile portion is something that will come out. You have a little notch here, so you can raise that notch up, and that will allow you to pull the missile out or detach it completely if you want to launch it, and then you're just left with that stub right there. So that's totally up to you. My preference is I put it on. Oops. Pull that back out. Also, you can close that down to lock this into place, so you've got the ability to push this all the way on. There you go. Lift that back up and shove that all the way in and close that back up. So my preference is to just leave it like this. You have with this missile on, it does have the ability to store it and tuck it away down in here during transformation. I'll cover that in the transformation. Just be careful when you do it. All right, so that is it for the accessories. So let's go ahead and move on and take a look at the details on Phantasm. Here he is, the bot we've all been waiting to see. This is the Fans Toys FT-49 Phantasm. So let's go ahead and bring him in for a close-up, and we will start with that head sculpt. We've already seen the other head sculpt, so there it is. You can see what I'm talking about. It's just a little bit wider down there at the base by the jawline. Yeah, it looks pretty darn good. I do like what they've done here. They've definitely captured that G1 Mirage look. Right beside his head, you have that missile launcher, which we got a little bit of a sneak preview of just a little bit ago. Looks good all the way around. Not a whole lot of detail, but it definitely gets the job done. Again, very reminiscent of that G1 Mirage. And coming down to the chest, you see that nice pearlescent chest there, and then he has that chest plate right there that looks really good. And coming on down, you can see right down here in that waist area where that nose cone wraps around, or that front spoiler wraps around, to give him that nice V look. You know, just kind of that V cut. And then he has a very prominent crotch, so, you know, good for him. And coming on down to those legs, look really good. Again, not an incredible amount of detail here. I think they were going for that G1 look, and I think they've captured it pretty well. Even the insides of the legs, everything looks good there. And down to those feet, coming around to the side. I like what they've done here with the wheels. Just the simple act of turning those wheels inside out just gives you a bit more of that illusion of that transformation. And then coming up those legs, looks good. You can see that he's pretty solid all the way through. And coming around to the back, just give you that back view of the figure. Yeah, even back here, looks really good. So nothing to complain about, really. I mean, if you're going to have a spot for screws and all that kind of stuff, the back of the figure is the place to have it. So you can see you've got that cockpit area relatively unchanged from the car mode. And then coming back here, you can see those nice ratchets for the legs. Everything comes together really well back there as well. So yeah, definitely in the aesthetics department and the overall looks department here, this guy absolutely nails it. It's G1 Mirage through and through. He looks so darn good. Can't get enough of looking at this guy in both modes, frankly. So now that we've gotten the details out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the articulation. And we'll start right up here with that head. So this is kind of an old style Takara Masterpiece style kind of head. What they've done with it here, it's not on a ball joint. It's sitting here on a couple of different joints. So you can raise that head up. Now, if you move this out of your way, just disconnect this back piece right here a little bit. You can see you get a pretty wide range of motion with that head, so it will actually go back that far. But when you have the cockpit in place, it kind of acts as a cowl and it pushes that head forward. So you're a little bit limited just by that, but if you need him looking up, you can definitely disconnect this back here to get him into a pose. So he'll look up that far, he'll look down that far, and then you can turn it a full 360 if you choose to do so. Over here at the shoulder, you can bring the shoulder up about that far. Now you have transformation joints that you can use. They're not really meant for the articulation, but if you need to, you could bring that shoulder down a little bit so you can kind of see the difference there and bring the shoulder back up a little bit. But they're transformation joints. They're not for normal posing. So anyway, shoulder up all the way around if you want to take it all the way around. At that elbow, you get a nice deep elbow bend on that single joint, and you have bicep rotation right there, so you can go all the way around. Down here at the hands, you have wrist rotation. You can go all the way around, and then you have these four fingers all working together, can open and close. So they'll open that much, and then of course they'll close into that fist mode right there. Coming down here to the waist, you have a nice ratcheted waist, so you can go all the way around if you choose to do so there. You have a little bit of, at least in my copy, a little bit of ab wiggle, but I'm not going to call that ab crunch. I just think that's maybe something in the way the figure's designed. It's not useful anyway. So coming on down to the hips, you can see I have proactively flared out my hip skirts here, so we can go ahead and get those splits out of the way. So you can do a full splits with Mirage, not quite a Van Damme, but you can get a full split out of the guy. You can kick forward that far. You can kick backward about that far, so not as much range of motion in the back, but still a little bit. And then you have thigh rotation right up there. Nice tight joints. Coming down here to those knees. Nice deep knee bend on a single joint as well. And then you also have knee rotation, so you can take advantage of that as well. Coming down to those feet, you do have a little bit of ankle rotation, not a lot. So there's your straight and then your ankle tilt. You get a few degrees there. Nothing really in the heel, but you do have toe movement, so you can bring those toes up that far if you need to, and then back down that far. So articulation is pretty good on this guy. You're not going to hurt as far as getting him into some poses. Would have liked to have seen a little more articulation in that head and a little more articulation in those feet. Really would have gone a long way there. Ab crunch is always a great thing, but overall articulation is pretty good on this guy. So let's go ahead and jump right into the accessories, since he really only has the one, other than his missile launcher here. And what you can do with that missile launcher, I mean, you can change the position of this. It'll go in a little bit, it'll go out a little bit. You can go up, you can take it back here and just kind of tuck it away. Now it's not flush, but you can kind of tuck it away to get it out of the way. And you know what? As a matter of fact, yeah, you can totally tuck it. You can do a total tuck. So if you don't want it on there at all, you can do that, or not don't want it on there. Just if you want it to get it completely out of your way, you can tuck it away like that because it is sitting on that double hinge. So yeah, you can do quite a few things with that. You can just have it sitting back here if you want to do that as well. So as far as that rifle goes, you've got just a nice little system here of the slot in the palm there at the bottom, and you've got your little tab at the bottom. So it works out pretty well. He holds onto it quite securely. You stick that gun in, line it up, get it started a little bit for him, and then squeeze those fingers around it. And then he's going to hold that gun, and nothing's going to happen to it. I mean, he's holding on to it nice and tight. I mean, you could probably hang on to it. Oh, no, he fell down. You could probably hang on to it and lift him up. So, yeah, he's got a nice, good grip on that gun. Not that big of a deal. Yeah, look at that. Yeah. So anyway, there he is with all of his accessories and details and articulation. So now that we've got all that covered, let's go ahead and get him transformed into his really good looking race car mode. Now before I begin, there are just a couple of little fiddly areas here. This is not a difficult transformation. Just make sure you follow the process and just be really careful in certain areas, because you don't want to chip paint, you don't want to hurt your parts of your figures. So we're going to start with the easy stuff first. So right under here you've got these little areas right under his wrists that you're going to collapse. Super easy, just give those a little bit of a squeeze right there. That's going to collapse like that, and then you're just going to be able to tuck that away just under like that. All right, take this wrist, you're going to rotate that 90 degrees outward, straighten the arm out, rotate the arm 90 degrees outward, so you should have an arm that looks like that. Now you're going to take this blue piece right here, you're going to lift this piece up, and as you lift this piece up, it's actually going to disconnect that arm, and then you've got a bit of a double hinge right there. So take that double hinge, and then you're going to collapse this arm up inside, just like that, and then you're going to close this piece back up. So just for comparison's sake, this is your before, and this is your after. Let's go ahead and do this arm now. So take that wrist piece, or whatever you want to call this cuff underneath, and collapse that in and get that tucked away. Take that hand, rotate it outward 90 degrees, take the forearm, or take at the bicep, rotate it 90 degrees outward. Lift this blue piece up. As you do, it's going to disconnect that arm. You've got that double hinge right there. You're going to shove that arm in, and then you're going to collapse this piece again. So you should have two arms that look like that, hopefully. And now that we've got the arms completed, we're going to start getting into the tricky part of this guy. This is the part where you're going to want to be really careful. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull this back now. So I'm going to show you, before we get too far, right now if you look down in there, you don't have a hole. And that's really important, because you're going to take this rocket, this missile launcher right here, and you're going to tuck all this away. If you don't have his waist rotated 180 degrees, you're not going to be able to fit that in there, and you're going to cause damage to your the tip of your missile right there. So go ahead and take that waist and rotate that 180 degrees so he's sitting backwards. And now if we take a look again, now you can see you do have a hole down in there, and that's going to allow that tip of this missile to tuck away. So very important, don't damage your missile. All right, take his head, rotate that head 180 degrees around, lift these arms up just a little bit so you can get to these pieces of the nose cone, and then you're going to flip those out. All right, and now the next thing we're going to do is take these arms right here, and we're just going to disconnect them at those shoulders and pull those down. That's about as far as they go, so that's all you're going to need. All right, now I'm going to make life a little bit easier for me. I'm going to come over here. What we need to do is we need to get this nose cone assembly. We need to bring this up, but I'm just going to push on these tires. You start pushing on these tires, and that's going to bring all that up for you. And you're going to get to about the 90-degree spot, and then you can take these and flip these out. So you just got these little tabs in here. They're just going to self-align, and you're going to bring, you're not going to do that with your tires though. Don't do that with your tires. But you're going to bring those up so they're like that, and then do the same thing over here. Bring those up, give them a nice squeeze, and then you're pretty much set right there. Now, we're going to address this big gaping hole down here. So this is where you want to be careful. So take your rocket, if you want, have your rocket oriented like this, and then you're going to bring it in like that. Then you're going to turn it 180 degrees, and you notice it's sitting on a double hinge right here. So you're going to turn it 180 degrees, and as I turn it, I have it pulled back like that, because what you're going to do is you're going to take that, you're going to line that up, and then you're going to start to shove that in. Don't push it forward yet. You're going to bring this up and start to shove that in. And then once you know you're in that hole, then you can take that double hinge and collapse it forward like that. And then that's going to essentially form your cockpit area right there, and then that's going to hide the head. So then you're just going to give that a gentle push, and then you're going to bring this nose cone up like that. Okay? All right, so the next thing, again, wanting to be really careful, you're going to want to take this little chest piece here, open that up, and then bring that down. That'll secure all that in. But you have this 90-degree cutout right here. That's going to align with your hip skirts. So you want to make sure that you have your legs oriented where this little cutout will line up with those hip skirts without having too much rub there. Okay, so just something, lessons learned, if you will. So take your shoulder pieces right here, or those chest pieces, they're going to align right up. You've got tabs and slots, and then you've got these shoulder areas right here. So you're going to kind of tuck all this away as you go and give that a shove, and then that's about as far as I go right here until I know that I'm going to be able to clear those hip skirts. So same thing here, give that a little bit of a tuck away, very tight joints, not complaining. All right, now I'm going to turn him back around, and I'm going to watch right here as I collapse those arms in, because I want to make sure that I'm clearing those hip skirts. So looks like I'm good there, so I'm going to give that a shove, and looks like I'm good there, so I'm going to give that a shove as well. So that's why I wanted you to be careful, because they're going to line up nice and tight right there. So for all intents and purposes, at this point you have the front of the car completed. All right, so now we're going to work on the legs, which is the rear of the car. I'm going to fix my wheel up here. There we go. All right, so you need to take these thighs. You're going to turn these thighs out 90 degrees. And yeah, I probably should have turned them out before I messed with my arms or collapsed my arms in. So lesson learned there. But you're going to take those and you're going to rotate those out 90 degrees. You're going to have something oriented like that. And then you're going to, at the knee, rotate these 90 degrees back toward you. All right, after you have that, now you're going to separate this blue piece. Just give this a pull. And that's going to come out on a double hinge. You're going to take these wheels and you're going to rotate those wheels 180 degrees. Something to note before we get too far. You have a slot right here in this wheel. I want you to remember that, because that slot is going to align to the tab that's actually part of this. So if I lift this tab up, that tab is actually going to end up going into the slot on the tire. So just keep that in mind. So then the next step, what we're going to do is we're actually going to grab this and lift it up just like that. And then we're going to make our way down here. You've got this little flap right here. So you got to be really careful with this little flap. So this little flap comes up. You can just grab that with your fingernail like that. And then you have the guts of the leg essentially can come out. So lift this up, you've got a hinge right there, lift this up, and then that's all going to come around. And you can kind of see how this is all going to go together. So this is the engine here. But before we get too much further, we need to flip this foot around so it becomes a spoiler. So in order to do that, you got to push this flap back down, not that far, but push this flap back down, and then you're going to rotate this foot. And then as you rotate it, you're going to need to rotate the toe, and then you're going to rotate 180 degrees on this like that. And then go ahead and bring this up so you can bring this flap back up, because you're going to need to get this flap back up out of your way. All right, so we have one leg kind of sort of ready and done, but then we're going to do this one next. So lift this up, rotate that tire 180 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lift that little tab up, lift this piece, and then lift this flap right here. Bring the guts of the leg out, flip this piece around, bring that flap back down, collapse this, rotate that 180 degrees, lift that toe area back up, bring my flap back up. Okay, so there's a couple different ways that you can go about this. You can do them individually, so you could collapse them individually and then tab everything in once you're ready, or you could tab this piece and the spoiler together now and do it all as one. So I'm going to do it just all as one. There's really, there may be a wrong way, but I'm just going to do it my way. So I'm going to tab together my spoiler. I've got these little tabs right here. So I'm going to squeeze those together. Tab my spoiler together. So now I have all that tabbed together the way that I want it. And now what you can do is you have these little pieces right here that fold in, and then they grab this little tab right here. They actually collapse up over that tab. So if you take that and you go up over that, let me reorient my camera here so I can give you a better look. So you go up over that, and then you squeeze all of this together right there. So you've got all that squeezed together. You've got this back end squeezed together. Now just keep your little tabs right there. Keep those in mind as you're collapsing the legs. So all you're going to do here is you're just going to bring those down and swing that forward. As such, as you do, make sure your little flaps back here are still apart. Keep all that together and bring that up right there. Now, this is as far as we're going to go before we do a little bit of maintenance. So you can see that that one little flap right there came up or moved a little bit on me. So before I go any further, yes, obviously we have these tabs and slots that are going to go together here, but you also have bits and pieces of the car that need to come down. So you have these flaps. You want to bring these flaps down because these flaps, if you'll notice, have little tabs on them as well. And they're going to correspond to the slots that are in these blue sides of the car. So let me do another quick camera adjustment. Trying to make sure I keep everything in frame here. It's not a complex transformation, but I want to bring you all the details because this is a valuable figure. I don't want you to hurt it. So bring those flaps down. And then you've got three things going on here. You have tabs and slots for this section that's going to go in here. You have tabs and slots for the wheels that are going to go back there. And then you have tabs and slots right here. So it's really just a matter of being gentle but firm. And you're going to want to do these first. So you've got that double hinge. You're going to bring that forward. You're going to give that a shove. And you're going to hear that snap. That's going to go in right there. And then you're going to do the same thing here. You're going to bring that forward, get that tucked away up underneath, and then hear that snap. And then you've got these flaps. You've got your flaps down here all the way, and then make sure that you have your tabs lined up there. So I do the wheels and the tires first, so give those a squeeze right there, and then ensure that you have these lined up, and then give these a squeeze right there. Okay, so that almost has us complete. We just have a couple little flaps to flip down now. So this is kind of the satisfying part. You just take these and you're going to tuck those away like that. And then you're going to do the same thing back here. You're just going to take your little flaps back here and push those down. And there you have Phantasm in his phantasmic alt mode. Well, I've got to say, I really think Fans Toys has hit the ball out of the park here as far as this alt mode for Phantasm. I mean, he absolutely captures the look of that G1 Mirage and does a great imitation of a race car. Not sure if this is supposed to be IndyCar, Formula One, something along those lines. So if you guys know, it would be much appreciated to pass that information along to me. But I do think this overall look here just looks great. So I'm going to put him on that turntable, get a couple of 360s out of this guy before we start to manhandle him. He's not perfect. I do have a quality issue here, and we're going to take a look at that here first, but just wanted to give you that overall uninterrupted view for a moment. Now that we have that turntable out of the way, let's go ahead and bring him in and take a look at those details. And I'm going to start with my what I want to call a quality issue, for lack of a better term. And you can see it right there. It is this gap right there between this nose and then the cockpit area. I've transformed it multiple times. I've tried a few different things, and I just cannot get that to lay flush. So hopefully your copy isn't like that. It's a little disappointing for a figure at this price point to have that, but that is my only major quality issue with this guy, so I'm not going to complain a whole lot about it. So that being said, let's go ahead and admire everything else that's going on here. You've got this pearlescent paint right here on the nose, and then you have the spoiler up here. It looks pretty good, especially considering that these take 90-degree bends for that bot mode. So I think they came across looking pretty good as well. And then you've got those wheels. You've got a little bit of a facsimile of some suspension going on behind those wheels there. And then those wheels and tires themselves look really good. You've got that 26 Citanes, just like that original G1 Mirage. Big old wheels and tires in the back. And then back here, I'm not entirely sure what a race car is supposed to look like from the early 80s back here. I'm guessing it's not exactly like this. So this is probably the weakest point for the alt mode, but still looks pretty good overall in my opinion. And then over here on this side, still just like the right side, looks really good. Coming up here, you've got that translucent blue windshield there. You got your little steering wheel. Not really a seat per se for a driver, but I don't know, they've made it look busy enough in there that it's not that bad. And then you've got your mirrors, which is really cool. Would have been nice if they would have had a little splash of silver or reflective paint in those mirrors, just to give it that mirror type look. But then this engine back here looks phenomenal. That looks so good. I mean, that just really sets it off. This silver paint, and then you've got these, I don't know if you want to call them intakes or, whatever those might be up there, but they look good. And then you've got those spots for each of those 4 cylinders on each side. Came across looking really good. So there he is from the top. And here he is from the bottom. So everything cleans up pretty good. I mean, it's not a whole lot of robot kibble. He does have visible hand syndrome right there. But everything else looks really good. So yeah, and he is very solid in this mode. Nothing shakes, nothing wiggles. He rolls nicely in this mode. So no major complaints there. Like I say, my biggest issue is just that gap. Now, while we have him in this mode, let's go ahead and talk about the accessory, or I guess the lack of what you can do with that accessory. So you have his gun. Now his missile launcher is actually this piece right here. It tucks away in his chest. But you have his gun right here, and I don't see anything in the instructions, and I'm not entirely sure what you're supposed to do with this. Now this does tilt, or this does rotate right there, and then you've got this little gap. So I don't know if it's supposed to be like you can adjust these spoilers and you can do something like that. Maybe for some kind of weapon storage. I mean, it holds on there well enough, and it looks like it's kind of shaped like that. So that's my best educated guess there. So if anybody else knows, please let me know. That would be really appreciated, because I hope I have this right, but I'm not entirely sure that that is the correct thing. So with that, that's going to finish up the details here. No real articulation to speak of. He rolls. So let's go ahead and get into those alt mode comparisons and take a look at him there. So for our first alt mode comparison, I figured I would start where it all began. This is my G1 Mirage from when I was a kid, and yes, he is in really bad shape. He has a broken waist, he has no front tires, but he was well loved. And as you can see, there is a absolute tremendous amount of just copy and paste here, just with modern engineering and modern materials. So I mean, you can see just that overall shape. The Citane's 26. Everything is just brought over and looks wonderful on this guy. I'll give you a couple different views here. He does have, like I say, that broken waist. So, you know, hey, it's like a magic trick. But let's go ahead and get a couple different views there. So this is, of course, that front 3/4 view. Here they are back to back, and you will also notice that I do have a bit of a broken winglet thing right there as well. Here they are with that rear 3/4 view, and you can see that they're both equally about as plain and uninteresting from this view. Here they are head to head. And finally, here they are coming right at you. Moving along to our next comparison, this is the War for Cybertron Siege Mirage. This is the Decepticon version when he went undercover to spy on the Decepticons. Next up is the Transformers Legacy Stunticon drag strip. Moving on to our next comparison, this is Magic Square's take on a Legends scaled drag strip. And finally, for a fellow Fans Toys comparison, this is Fans Toys Aussie. This is their take on G1 Outback. Alt mode comparisons are done, so let's go ahead and race on out of here and get this guy transformed back into his bot mode. So to get Phantasm transformed back into his bot mode, you're going to want to loosen some things up first. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start with this area right here. We're just going to give this a little pull right there, pull that tire out, and then we're going to split this. So give that a squeeze, and then that's going to allow that part of the car to come back on double hinges. All right, we'll do the same thing over here. So give that tire a pull, give that a little bit of a pull, give this a squeeze right here, and give it a pull. There we go. All right, so once you've got that pulled apart, now you've got some flaps that you need to get out of your way. So you have these little flaps right here. You're going to lift those up and get those out of your way. Do that on both sides. So you've got those flaps lifted up, and then you have these little flaps right here and right here. Lift those up out of your way as well. And then finally, you have these flaps back here. So go ahead and move those feet or spoiler, whatever you want to call it, and then just grab these and lift these up just like that. So once you have that, that's going to give you the ability now to uncollapse these legs or extend these legs out. So just double checking and making sure that you've got everything out of the way. Now you can start pulling on these legs and bringing them out. So see that they're coming apart right there, and lift this up or give this a little bit of a split. That'll help. And then you can start to bring these back and loosen all of this stuff up as it loosens. So once this splits right here, go ahead and collapse those, and then start just giving everything a nice friendly wiggle, if you want to call it that. Split this spoiler right here, and then trying to give you the best view possible. Take that leg and start bringing that leg back and out. So turn this flap if you want. Go ahead and do this now. Turn this flap down, and then you're going to rotate this around. And while you rotate that around, you're actually going to lift this up, and then that's going to become his foot. So before and after, lift that flap back up right there, and just start getting everything nice and loose. It's really what you're working on here. You're going to bring that down, and then you're going to bring that leg out like that. All right. So you get this little flap here. It doesn't really matter in what sequence you do this, but you can take the flap down now, or you can take the flap down a little bit later. So what you have right here, these are the guts of the leg. So make sure that you have this little piece right there. Make sure that's flipped inward. And then you're going to bring this down. And as you bring it down, make sure you've got everything cleared. So bring all that down, and then that's going to form the leg. And then you have this little tab right there that's going to go into this slot. Close that up. And then close your flap right here, and then take your wheel and you're going to rotate your wheel 180 degrees so it's out like that, and then you have a little slot in here that's going to correspond to a little tab in there. So you're going to bring that double hinge down, and then you're going to give that a squeeze just like that. Alright, so we're not quite done with this leg yet, but we are going to move on to this leg before we make our final steps right there. So take this entire thing, bring that flap down, rotate this, bring that piece up, bring that flap back down, and lift this up if that helps. And then extend that leg out like that. Bring this down, make sure that that little piece is pointed inward. Bring that down, make sure you've got good clearance everywhere. And then like I said, you can take this tab and you could close the tab now, or you could close it after you close this. It's up to you. And then close that up. Close this flap down here. Take your wheel, rotate your wheel 180 degrees, and then tab and slot right there. All right, so now that you've got that completed, now you need to rotate your thighs. So it can be easier to rotate the thighs if you move the arms out of the way first, so it's really up to you. You've got the clearance. I just like to get the legs completed and then rotate that thigh in, rotate that knee out. All right, so you've got the legs completed at this point. All right, so your next step is to go ahead and extend these arms or pull these arms out. So these arms are connected right up here, so if you give these a little bit of a squeeze on either side, you can start opening them up right there. And then while you're at it, you're going to go ahead and you're going to grab this and extend this out as well. So this doesn't come all the way out, it just comes out a little bit, and it's really just enough for you to get that arm. And then you have this shoulder assembly that's going to pop out. So I didn't mean to do it that fast, but you have this shoulder assembly that's tucked away in there, and you want to bring that shoulder assembly out so it looks like that. All right, since we're working on the arm, let's go ahead and get this thing taken care of. We've got this thing popped out right here, so give that a little bit of a pull, and then that's going to allow you to take this arm, and it was like that, bring it out like that, and then you see this little tab right here. There's a little slot that's right in there just on the inside, and you're going to tuck that away. All right, so let's go ahead and take care of this other arm over here. So give that a pull, bring that shoulder assembly out. Now I'm going to do the rest of this arm later, just because I want to show you a different sequence, but I'm trying to get that shoulder assembly out. There we go. So these joints are nice and tight. So you should be about right here. Now what we're going to do is a part that is very, it's very precarious. You really want to be careful here. So take this chest piece, and you've got a tab right there. You're going to pull that out and then lift this up, and then you're going to tuck that little tab away just like that. All right, and now you see this piece right here. This is his missile launcher. It's tucked away down in that hole in the waist. So you're going to want to be really careful with your next steps here. So if you want, you can go ahead and take those wheels, bring those wheels out down like that, and then just kind of move this out of your way so you've got a little bit of his head exposed. But you're going to want to be really careful here. I can't emphasize that enough. You don't want to damage your weapon. So you're going to, this was secured, you're going to pull this back a little bit. And as you pull this back a little bit, you have a weapon. Your missile launcher is sitting there on a double hinge right here. So you're going to want to try to pull this up a little bit, and then I use my thumb right here, and then I just give this a little bit of a shove, and then bring, man, it's going to be tough to get this on camera. there's a double hinge right here. I'm going to lift this up and back. So it's the best way I can describe it is I'm going to lift it up and back. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, which is why I'm emphasizing that I really want you to be careful with this, because I don't want you to damage your weapon here. So just make sure. And trying to grab this thing on camera is not the easiest thing in the world either. Goodness gracious. There we go. All right. There. That's better. So double hinge. It was like that. Up and back. And that's going to give you the clearance that you need to safely get that weapon out of that hole right there. So then you can bring this the rest of the way out. Swing this weapon out of the way. And then swing it out like that. Now once you have that out of the hole, you are free to rotate the waist now if you want to do that. But do not rotate your waist until you have this weapon out. Alright, so we're going to rotate that waist around, and then you're good. Alright, so your next step is to take your tires, get that chest piece up out of your way, take your tires and rotate those tires in, and then start collapsing this. And then as you collapse that, those tires are going to tuck away, and I'll try to show you from this side. So those tires are going to tuck away inside the chest. So just keep giving that little push. Tuck your tires. And then give it a nice, make sure these are clear, and give that a nice shove right there. And then you're going to have your tires tucked away right there in his chest. Okay? Once you have his tires safely tucked away, just push that chest piece down. You can rotate this head around now if you want to. And then you're going to bring these pieces up. So you've got slots here that go to those tabs right there. So bring those up and push those in. Do the same thing over here. Bring those up, push those in. Push your little edges of your nose cone in on his waist. And then we've already completed one of or a majority of the actions on one of the arms, but let's go ahead and close this up back here before I forget about it. So then you just shove that up and give that a nice squeeze, and then bring that missile launcher down. And you've got the missile launcher down. Now you do have a little thing here where you can grab that, and then you can open this up, and it allows you to extend that missile launcher if you want to. I just prefer to keep it like that. I think it's a better look, but that's up to you. Whatever you want to do, so you can push that back down. All right, so if you don't already have your arm extended, so you can see over here this arm is extended, this arm is not. So if you don't already have your arm extended, just lift up on this piece right there, and you can see that little double hinge. That's going to allow you to take that arm and bring that arm out like this, and then line that tab and that slot up right there, and then give that a squeeze. All right, after you've done that, you're going to rotate your arm 90 degrees. You're going to rotate your hand 90 degrees. And then you're going to look up under here, and you can see this little area right here where it's a bit of a divot. So this is probably my least favorite part of the guy, just because, I don't know, it just feels like it was kind of half-baked. But anyway, let's go ahead, and you've got a little flap right here. You're just going to grab that flap. You're going to open it up like that, and it is sitting, you can see that hinge right there, so it's sitting on a double hinge. You are going to open it up and then just give it a little bit of a squeeze. Change the view here so you can see what I'm doing. Give that a little bit of a squeeze right there. And then that is complete, even though he's a little hollow. Okay? So we'll do the same thing over here. We already have this arm extended, so we're just going to rotate the arm 90 degrees. We're going to rotate the hand 90 degrees. We're going to look up under here. We're going to grab this flap, open it up, open that hinge, and then give that a little squeeze right there. Okay, so that is everything for Mr. Phantasm. I'll do a quick camera adjustment here so you can see. We now have him complete and back in his robot mode. For our first bot mode comparison, I'm going to start with that original. This is my G1 Mirage that I've had since I was a kid. Yeah, he's in really bad shape. He's actually broken in half, and his legs can't really support his weight anymore. But from a point of example or comparison, you can see just how much Fans Toys brought over to capture basically an amalgamation between that original G1 toy and the cartoon version, up to and including that very prominent crotch right there. So congrats on that. So let's go ahead and give you a couple different views here. So this is that view from the front. I'm not going to put him through too much torture here because he is, well, that. But let's go ahead and I'll get him flipped around and we'll take a view from there as well. And here we have that view from the back. And yeah, he can't support his own weight anymore. I don't mean to laugh at him. I'm really sorry, Mirage. But you can see, I mean, even that cockpit, bringing that cockpit over, and those vents. So you can kind of see those vents right under there. I'm going to go ahead and grab him just to show you. So you've got these silver vents right under there that they've copied over and just made white on the Fans Toys version. But yeah, very cool. All the things that they've done here to bring that G1 toy over into the modern world. Moving on to our next comparison. This is the Transformers War for Cybertron Siege Mirage in his Decepticon getup when he was spying on those Decepticons. But just give you a sense of scale there, what a Siege figure looks like next to that Fans Toys Phantasm. Next up is the Transformers Legacy Stunticon drag strip, so you can get a race car to race car robot comparison. And our next comparison, he's just a little guy. This is Magic Square's version of a Legend scaled Stunticon drag strip, so you can see the difference there. And last but not least, for a Fans Toys to Fans Toys comparison, this is the Fans Toys Outrider. This is their version of a Masterpiece Trailbreaker. So you can see how the Phantasm scales up, and I think this works. You know, based on what we've seen in the cartoons, I think that this scale works really well. And I love Outrider's screamy face. He just looks like an angry old man telling the kids to get off his lawn. And that's going to do it for the bot mode comparisons, so let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. So there you have the Fans Toys FT-49 Phantasm. And I think this is a wonderful figure. I think this is definitely one that if you are a Masterpiece collector, you're going to want to put this guy in your collection. He is, as far as I'm concerned, the definitive G1 Masterpiece Mirage, at least as of the time of this recording. So he's definitely something you're going to want to get your hands on. So let's go ahead and try to quantify this guy a little bit, and we'll start where we always do with the overall looks of this figure, the aesthetics. I have zero complaints. If you want to pick, you can maybe talk about those little collapsible areas at the bottoms of his wrist. But even then, I mean, come on. He is just Mirage through and through. He looks wonderful in his robot mode. He looks wonderful in his car mode. There's nothing really to complain about here for this price point. I'm going to give him a 10 out of 10 on aesthetics. I don't do that very often, but this guy is beautiful. Moving on to the articulation. It's pretty good. You know, there are a few things where I think he's lacking. I would have liked to have had more articulation in the head. It's hard to beat a good ball joint in the head. I'm not a big fan of ball joints for your major areas, shoulders, hips, that kind of stuff. But in the head, it gives you that nice quizzical tilting ability, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of missing on this. And he does have that limited looking up articulation unless you move the cockpit out of the way a little bit. Also in the feet, would have been nice to have had a little bit more ankle tilt. You can see in this pose right here that I would have really liked to have gotten his foot flat on the ground, but he's still able to pull this pose off, no problem. Don't make fun of the way I pose my figures. I like this. It's good enough for me. An ab crunch would have been nice, but that's kind of a wish list item, and it doesn't really detract from the figure overall, so I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 on articulation. Moving on to the accessories. They're very well done. I like the accessories that came with this figure. I just feel like for this price point, there should have been something more. It left me wanting. But I don't know what, but it left me wanting. I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like there should have been something more there. Like maybe something involving his cloaking or something would have been nice. So they're good. I just don't think it's quite everything that I would have expected for this price point. So I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 for accessories. Moving on to quality. Overall quality on this figure is wonderful. I don't really have a lot to complain about except for in his car mode. Just that gap that I have where the cockpit meets the nose of the car. Hopefully it's just my copy. Hopefully it's not something that's systemic across the entire line here for Phantasm. But everything else is good. The joints are tight everywhere else. The paint looks good. I have no molding or sculpting defects. He came with everything that he was supposed to. He transforms the way that he's supposed to. So, you know, the biggest complaint there would be really tight tolerances, but that's kind of a Fans Toys thing. That's not a quality issue per se. So I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10 for quality, just dinging him a little bit for that gap that I have between the cockpit and the nose. So that takes us to our last bullet, which is overall value. Yeah, I think depending on where you get this figure, I think the value is definitely going to be there. Personally, I picked this figure up. This was a pre-order that I had through the Chosen Prime, and I picked this figure up for $160 US. You know, it's just quite literally, it's the price you pay for Fans Toys figures nowadays. I mean, this is, for all intents and purposes, that's the MSRP. So unless you can find him on a really good sale, or if you get him on Show Z Store or something like that, you might be able to get him a little less expensively. But for most of the vendors that supply to North America, you're going to find right about that price point. And I think that the value is there for $160. I wouldn't go much above that, but I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 for overall value for the price that I paid. If you can find him for less than $160 US, definitely take advantage of that. So that brings us to our grand total. Out of a possible 50 points, the Fans Toys Phantasm gets 43 out of 50, which puts him at 86%. It makes this guy an easy recommendation. I encourage you to find this figure and pick him up if you are a masterpiece kind of collector. If you're a fan of Mirage or any of those G1 toys, this guy is just a blast. Once you get his transformation down and you know the places to be careful with him, getting him back and forth between the two modes is not that difficult. It's actually kind of fun. The transformation flows. He looks good in both of his modes, so I just can't say enough good things about this figure. So definitely something worth a pickup. So with that, that's going to wrap it up. I hope you guys got some good information. I hope you found some entertainment in this as well. And if you haven't already done so, please be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already done that. And feel free to leave a comment if you want to. And if you think that this channel or this video is something that others would enjoy, please feel free to share that content with them. So until we see you guys in the next review, take care.